some hope to die.
By these 50 countries, differing so much in race and religion, in language and culture.
It is a big idea, a new world order.
Well, I know they're lying. They tricked me once, but they're not going to trick me twice. The time is now. Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast. This is David Penn, your host. Glad to be with you as always for episode number 235, coming to you on September 2nd, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Retire Kristin Robbins, duplicity and disclosure. Duplicity and disclosure. We're a political action community, and I'm going to say right up front, the point of this is to get everybody involved in politics, every one of you. You know, a lot of you are regular members of the community. I know a lot of you are getting involved, thinking about getting involved. But right now, today, in this episode, we're going to come up with reasons to get involved. So there's the reason to get involved, and then how to get involved, and what we're going to do together once we are involved. And what are we going to do together? We're going to save ourselves. Is going to become very evident from tonight's clips. Please play number one.
Social credit system is basically an expansion of money or a new kind of money. You know, when you think about traditional money, gold coins, dollars, even bitcoins, they give value only to specific parts of human reality.
Right.
Some things you do, like you work, you gain money, you want to buy airline ticket, you pay money, but other things you go visit your friends, you go visit your grandmother, even you throw trash in the street. Mm-hmm. This is no monetary value. The idea of the social credit is to monetize everything, to give value to every single thing you do in life, and this is your score. Mm-hmm. So even things that traditionally were not about money, they're about reputation or status. Suddenly you get precise points for them. And also anything you want to do, you need to use your social credit for it. So again, it has positive potential in some regards. Mm-hmm. It could create the most totalitarian, again, systems in history, where anything you do impacts your ability to get a job, to gain a loan, to travel. And in a way, you see this not only in China, you see it all over the world, also in the US. This because it's a function of surveillance, that traditionally only some areas of life were monitored and surveyed. And even in dictatorships, there was privacy. Mm-hmm. If you live in the Soviet Union, so the KGB can't follow you around all the time. They just don't have enough agents.
Right. They tried, but
they try, but you have 200 million Soviet citizens. Mm-hmm. They don't have 200 million agents. Now, you can monitor everybody all the time. You don't need human agents or analysts. You have the computers, smartphones, cameras, drones, microphones everywhere, and you have the AIs analyzing all the ocean of information. So this creates the potential for total surveillance. And it can take the form of the social credit system.
Good morning, Tanner.
Good morning.
How'd that strike you?
That was terrifying. I will give him credit, though. This is the first time I ever heard him say the bad side of the coin. Most times whenever he talks about his ideas, he only talks about the good.
This is called disclosure. Tonight's episode, duplicity and disclosure. Disclosure is very important because we are to consensually choose the digital prison that's being created for us.
Yeah.
And we're one financial crisis away from losing the U.S. dollar and having it replaced by central bank digital currency. It's all over the Federal Register. You can go look it up yourself. You know, you think about money. Money. Why do we work? We work because we need things.
Yeah.
We get money. It's a reward. It's a reward, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a reward. And did you hear what he said, Harari? Now everything.
Yeah.
Everything has a value. Like when you throw trash in the street. it's a negative. When you visit your grandmother in the old folks' home, it's a positive. Think of the power that the state will have to incentivize what I like to call preferred behavioral outcomes.
Yeah.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Well, it seems like we're talking about like great ideas. It's like communism in a way where it's like good idea on paper. Yeah, sure. Maybe in a small household that kind of idea would work, but human nature always gets in the way. So it's like, yeah, I can kind of agree in some sense is like, yeah, if you're throwing garbage on the ground, I don't, I'm a little mad at you. But if we put cameras everywhere, what are we going to do when, like, at the same time we're discussing the homelessness issue, we're about to start monetizing people's attitudes?
Yes.
Whew. Oh man, the homelessness issue is only going to get worse.
What you look at on Google, it'll go to your social credit score. The ability of the state to be sure that the behaviors that we, the people, exhibit fits their model
Yeah.
is going to be totalitarian. He even says it.
Yeah, it
He
might be
says
totalitarian.
It might be, yeah. In other words, you're going to tell me how I'm going to get my good score is up to the leadership. And if I don't get a good score, I can't buy food.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
You get flies in water.
It's mind-boggling. And, this is disclosure. This is completely disclosing. They're not hiding. We're one financial crisis away from being in this digital surveillance social credit score state. And this is the reason to organize. This is the reason to get involved in politics, because we still have the freedom to bring about outcomes that we, the people, seek. I don't want to live in do you want to live under total surveillance?
No, dude. I'm so scared recently with even he kind of dropped it. He's like, now we don't need all these agents. We have computers, cell phones, cameras, microphones, and he said drones. When I was a little kid, I used to had a recurring dream of drones flying up to my windows and looking in the windows at me. And now I'm starting to get scared that might be a reality. That
Oh,
like, they're looking for, oh,
you,
we need to look for this criminal, so we have drones flying up to people's
you
windows.
had a prescient dream. Right. You're telling the future. Well,
Yeah.
we're right there. We're right on the cusp of this. In fact, we're already right there. This is our last stand to maintain our freedom. Let's listen to number 2, which spells it out a little bit more clearly.
The final goal is to eradicate humanity as we know it. Once you understand the final destination, it becomes much easier to look back and identify the psychological conditioning, the biological tampering, the cultural grooming, and the educational prepping that we have been subjected to for decades in preparation to making us accept a post-human future. It takes a lot of physical and psychological abuse to get an intelligent species like ours to agree to its own extinction. Most, if not all, that has transcended in the last 60 years was designed to get us closer to accepting such a dystopian reality. Whether you care to accept it or not, we live in a hyper-controlled matrix where our perception of reality is meticulously planned, managed, and executed in order to control and steer us in whichever direction they wish. And the direction is a post-human world. For this, they first needed to destabilize, dehumanize, and demoralize humanity through every means possible. The destruction of the nuclear family, children being indoctrinated by the state, abortion, the eradication of God and spirituality from education, life in mega cities and away from nature, toxic food, air and water, social media, replacing real human connection and interaction, engineered financial crisis and taxation, endless wars and massive migration, stress, anxiety, depression, drugs and alcohol, constant fear-mongering, moral relativism as the new religion, and I could go on and on about how humanity has been influenced and forced to move away from all the things that give us strength, security, purpose, and meaning. A weak, immoral, disconnected, ignorant, and unhealthy population is an easy target for the next stage, the creation of an entire generation of androgynous beings. Masculinity is under attack psychologically, culturally, and biologically. Women are being replaced in sports, entertainment, and politics by men pretending to be women, and children are being indoctrinated at school to think that gender is a choice. The transgender movement is not a grassroots movement. It comes from the top. It has nothing to do with people's freedom of expression, sexuality, or civil rights. It's an evil psyop with a clear agenda to get us closer to transhumanism by making us question the most fundamental notion of human identity, our gender. If you don't know who you are, if you already identify as a hybrid between a man and a woman, you will be easily convinced to become a hybrid between human and machine. Gender ideology is the 2 + 2 = 5 from George Orwell's 1984 dystopian novel. It's the final test to see whether we will follow the most absurd party line towards our own extinction. But 2 + 2 = 4. And no matter how you choose to dress, call yourself, or change your physique, will not change that. The sad reality, though, is that in the gaslighting process to get us closer to a post-human future, they have mentally and physically harmed an increasing number of children and young people, and it's only getting worse. This must be stopped.
How timely to find this week after we suffered such a traumatic event here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And then I'm watching on X, and we've got the inevitable push and pull, tug of war, brick-brack, back and forth between the pro-gun, the 2A people, and the we got to protect our children from guns group. That was a big deal. And then we've had the incessant criticism of the transgender movement from a medical perspective, what it's doing to the children. And, people are, they're not getting down to what it really is.
Mm.
Because if our politicians really stood up, and it could be possible that our politicians aren't awake yet. Some of them are, but they're not talking about this issue, which is this transhumanism issue, the gateway drug to the merger of man and machine is the scrambling of our program of what it is to be a human being. Am I a 1 or a 0, a man or a woman? I mean, it seems to be fairly, for my culture-bound generation, I'm not saying people didn't have identity issues. We just didn't hear about it. People worked this stuff out for hundreds of thousands of years in the privacy of their own home. Now we have this public movement, and the people involved in it are people with human rights and the rights of American citizens. As was said, this is a top-down psyop to bring us into contact with the machine world, to make us hybrids, androgynous, so that we can accept this next step into this post-human reality that's been dreamed up for us by who? The Darwinists. The Darwinists. So to this end, we are meeting, we are organizing, we are people. If we actually had our political leaders stand up and say, this is really about transhumanism, it's not about guns per se, that's a symptom. It's not about the medicalization of these people's lives, that's an issue. It's really about the core issue, which is, as we sit here tonight and enjoy this broadcast together, technology is racing ahead and imposing upon us a reality which is not protective of our Republican values. What happens when the technology is smarter than we are? Tanner, what happens when technology is smarter than we are?
I hate to say it, but I think it already is.
Okay, what's going to happen?
Yeah, well, we're watching it right now. We don't know. I mean, it's a complete information where I doubt half the things I think about now. So that's one aspect that I would say is at fault of that.
And I want to say this going into tonight's program. I'm I'm dependent on the best I can do to research things the best I can. Anything I research could be completely constructed by AI.
Yeah.
I could be led right down a rabbit hole. And so, I have to be very careful about that. But let me just comment that our next meeting here, and if you're in Arkansas, if you're in New York, start having meetings. Go to the local pub, get yourself a back room, start and invite people, get together, make lists, organize politically, go in to the Republican Party. If we are American firsters, if we believe in a pro-human future, we are going to organize. Because if we don't, if we allow ourselves to be psyoped, we're going to wake up in this world with this social credit score where everything we do is monetized, which means if we look something up on Google, which is not part of the plan, and I don't mean God's plan, part of some management plan, we're going to lose points. Our behaviors will be shaped through rewards and punishments. Every behavior, not just our work behavior. September 10th here in Minneapolis in Senate District 45. The next meeting, September 10th at Devani's on Highway 7. You are invited. You can go to Caucus Counter-Attack at roycewhite.us. That's Caucus Counter-Attack at roycewhite.us. Put in your information. We're going to get organized. We're in the process of getting organized. Once we're organized, we're going to be very specific about what we're doing. Please go to Caucus Counterattack. Sign up. Come to the meeting at Devani's on Highway 7, 6 p.m. on September 10th. We are going to work on getting involved in the Republican Party. And if you're on the Democrat side of the football and you believe in a pro-human future, those people need you. It's not a question of Democrat or Republican. It's a question of freedom or tyranny. I have to comment. Could you please put up this post from Mary Franson? I can't help but to comment on Mary, who has been a critic of Royce White, and she comes across as a very Christian and principled leader. And she posted up after this terrible event. Your party, speaking to the leader of the Democrats here in Minnesota, MinDFL, your party destroyed this man's life, and in turn, he destroyed the lives of precious children. When you recover from last night's drinking binge, go fuck yourself. Well, thank you, Mary. You sound just like Royce White now. That's right out of his playbook. Go fuck yourself. And since you're posting it up, I'm sure you're going to understand now, since you finally reached a point where you're using faux rage to pursue your political ambitions, you're going to have to acknowledge the real militancy in Royce White and why he speaks the way he does, because you've now adopted it. Thank you, Mary Franson, Minnesota political leader, member of the Minnesota legislature, swearing up a storm over this terrible event that happened this past week. This I'm going to do for myself. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for creating the light in the dark. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for creating me in your image. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for making me an American. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for making me free. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for healing the blind. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for feeding the people. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for releasing the bound. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for raising up the downtrodden. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for creating the heavens and earth. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for providing for all my needs. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for directing my path. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for my American courage. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for crowning America with glory. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for restoring strength to the weary. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds. Thank you for sending your only Son to die on the cross that I might be saved. Forgive me, my Father, for I have sinned. Pardon me, my King, for I have willfully transgressed. For you pardon and forgive. Blessed are you, God and King of all worlds, who is gracious and ever willing to forgive. That's disclosure. That's disclosure. Tonight, duplicity and disclosure. That's disclosure. That's who I am. That's where I live. I fall short, but I aim small, miss small. The news that matters. Tanner, could you please play number 3?
If you take away the Soviet Union and its chief proxy, the PLO, international terrorism would collapse.
If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region. Obviously, we'd like to see a regime change, at least I would, in Iran, just as I would like to see in Iraq. The question now is a practical question. What is the best place to proceed? It's not a question of whether Iraq's regime should be taken out, but when should it be taken out? It's not a question of whether you'd like to see a regime change in Iran, but how do it...
Are there any other nations that you would recommend that the United States launch preemptive attacks upon at this point?
The answer is categorically yes. The two nations that are vying, competing with each other, who will be the first to achieve nuclear weapons, is Iraq and Iran. But a third nation, by the way, is Libya as well. Libya is trying very rapidly to build an atomic bomb capability. So you have here now 3 nations.
All stand together to stop Iran's march of conquest, subjugation, and terror. I know that no matter on which side of the aisle you sit, you stand with Israel.
That would be a disclosure. No hiding there. Doesn't matter on which side of the aisle you sit. You stand with Israel, which means we, the American people, stand with Israel because our leaders reflect who we are. Allegedly. But they're telling us right up front. I mean, it's right there. And since I saw you last, Israel bombed the capital of Yemen and killed the prime minister of the country and many of the other ministers. Maybe about a dozen people died. It was a mass takeout of Houthi leadership. Very little. Did you even hear about it, Tanner?
No. You said this was recent?
This happened since I saw you last.
In Yemen.
In Yemen.
Yeah, no, I didn't hear a single word about this.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, you can bomb a capital of a foreign country and kill the entire leadership, and it doesn't even get covered on the news.
Yeah, and Yemen's been at war, right, with a couple of its neighboring countries?
Yemen's at war with Israel. Yemen is that country right there on the mouth to the Red Sea,
Right.
on the pathway to the Suez Canal, and they have been stopping shipping by, shooting missiles at ships. And occasionally they shoot a missile and hit Tel Aviv.
You know what's crazy for me growing up? I played this is kind of off topic, but it does tie. I played a game called Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And
Yes.
the storyline is based in 2025, and Yemen was one of the areas that a lot of the missions were based in.
Apparently they were jacked into the facts.
Yeah, they somehow knew.
Somehow art imitated reality.
Yeah.
I wonder how.
Yeah.
I wonder what the relationship is between the people that create that art and who funds them. And where does
The
that money come
CEO
from?
of Activision is tied together with the defense board. I remember a long time ago we went over like the U.S. Defense Board, if that's the right term.
What's a defense
I
board?
probably have the wrong. They're advisors for the military. I don't know. I can't remember what the list
Well, you look
was.
it up for the next time.
Yeah,
That'd be a good one
The
for you.
CEO of Activision is tied into military somehow.
Yeah, it's great. Probably has to do with money. Uh, and when they have the social credit score, if you don't play it, you're going to get a negative.
I bet it's part of propaganda too. I've heard the thought that us playing video games of like shooting, guns, military, it's desensitizing us to be soldiers one day.
Or just to let other people do their business and we just uh, collect
Yeah.
points on our social credit score.
It would be a stone that
Clapping
kills
like
two birds.
seals
Yeah.
from both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
Right, there we go. So Israel uh, achieved this great victory from Israel's perspective and wiped out a big part of the Houthi leadership. I had a very interesting interaction with a Jewish friend of mine who told me that my friendship with Royce White was blinding me to Royce's anti-Semitism. No, the love of Israel could blind you to what's going on in the Middle East. And what is your loyalties? And this friend of mine said, I'm America first and I'm pro-Israel. Those two things don't go together. If we're America first, we're not interested in a worldwide empire of which Israel is the linchpin. We would be interested in withdrawing from that role in the world and leaving it to anybody who wants to go pursue it while we, the people, are in pursuit of the enhanced well-being and prosperity of the American people. And I have to tell anyone who believes that Royce White is an anti-Semite, since I'm Jewish, anti-Semites don't hang around with Jewish people. And I know Royce well enough to know he's not using me. So that's one end of the spectrum. Then I get this other end of the spectrum who, like this one guy said, I'm Royce's kike handler. No, that's not true either. There's so much misinformation in here which gets purveyed and then passed out, and it's done to mislead the people. No, I'm an American who believes in the freedom of the American people. I am a follower of the philosophy of republicanism. For whatever reason, and I don't know why, God has brought my path into contact with Royce. I am pursuing my goal, which is to get you to the September 10th meeting on Highway 7 in Minnetonka at Devani's, where we can meet not to talk about issues, not to complain, but to talk about how we're going to get organized to get people into the political process. I am quite disclosing. In fact, when the constabulary shows up, as they have at the last two meetings, I just talk right to them and say, this is why I'm doing this. I'm doing it because you people are duplicitous. And I don't believe duplicitousness is the way to become a winning party. I think authenticity is the way to do it, as we were talking about when we had John Gapp as a guest on our last episode.
Yeah.
We're talking about authenticity.
Yeah. My generation is craving authenticity now. There's a shift happening.
When you look at my demographic numbers on YouTube, we got a lot of young people watching the Professor Penn podcast.
Yeah, more and more. It's been cool to watch because when I first started working on this podcast, it wasn't that way. The biggest group that we had was 40 to 60 years old, and it's really spread out to younger. I'm very happy, and maybe he might even be watching this. I was talking with my girlfriend's family, and we got one of her brothers listening to the podcast now. So
How cool is that?
yeah, just small conversation. You can get younger people and watching this content.
And I'm going to tell you, I'm not angry with anybody. I believe in authenticity. We're going to call out Kristin Robbins tonight for her duplicitousness. She's, not alone in doing that. I think that our political leaders here in Minnesota who have been using this awful event as a ping pong ball, it is not correct to focus on guns. That's a big money raiser. I just have to say, this is just me talking. And if you're listening to me and you're on the left, this is ridiculous to say that guns kill people. It really is. You must not have trained with guns. If you train with the gun, people kill people with guns. They're tools. Like forks. We were talking about forks
Yeah.
and knives and rocks. Killing is not limited to guns. Well, they're more efficient. How about the efficiency of having a culture of life? Like when I grew up back in the 60s, there was very few murders in St. Paul when I grew up.
Yeah.
Because guess what? We didn't do such things. There was guns, there just wasn't as many murders. Okay, I don't want to get caught up in that because that's not the issue. And I don't want to get caught up in the trans community issue because, after all, these are American citizens. And if they're caught up in this, they are, and they believe in it, that's okay. That's their right. But then what about the data that's supposed to drive our medical community? The data seems to be lacking that this kind of therapy alleviates the suffering of these people. They
Yeah.
still have mental health issues and suicidal issues even after treatment.
Yeah.
I
And
guess that's why medicine is an art and not a science.
right.
It's an
Yeah.
art, right?
A
It's
lot
an
of the
art.
medications too, like is it the SSRIs? They're black labeled. So it I wonder how much of that weighs into it too.
I
Like
wonder how much it
we're
does.
not actually trying to fix the mental health crisis. It seems like we're just trying to sell band-aids for it.
We're monetizing the mental health crisis,
Yeah.
just like we're monetizing the argument over guns,
Mm.
just like we're monetizing the argument over the trans community,
Yeah.
over the medical treatments. The issue that matters is the social credit score, the digital currency, and the loss of humanity to technology. And if that can't unite us, I mean, really, if you're on the left and you're hating me, come on. I mean, I'm not trying to be hated. I'm saying the issues we're fighting about aren't even the issues that matter. The news that matters is the people need to unite and have a connected political agenda about how we're going to deal with this technology because it is going to eliminate us, left or right, white or black, young or old. We're right there. We got to get our game together. But hey, we're distracted because Israel is wiping out the leadership of Yemen. Israel carried out a landing operation in Syria, long way from Yemen. Hey, Israel's fighting all over the region, almost as if it's trying to carve out a new reality, which is called Greater Israel. In Syria, Israel has occupied the Golan Heights, has pushed inward towards the capital Damascus, has occupied large swaths of Syrian territory. It is now occupying Gaza. What's going to happen here? Well, is this a distraction, a diversion? Of course not. It's war, but it is not the heart of the matter. Let us not be caught up in, diversions. The Ukraine has now confirmed that Russian troops have breached the central oblast of Dnipropetrovsk. That's the center of the country where the industry is, where they do production, where there are factories. Yes, the Russians are expanding the scope of the war. Bet you didn't hear that one either.
No, that also sounds like I don't like saying this out loud, but that might be the end of Ukraine.
That is Vladimir Putin's goal
Yeah, I mean,
because
if you take over the production, though, how much further can Ukraine really go?
not very much further.
Yeah.
We're having a moment of truth coming up here in the Ukraine. So, what does President Trump do? Knowing that the Russians are advancing into the center of the country, he authorized another $825 million arms sale to Ukraine, which included 3,350 extended range attack munitions, ERAMs, missiles. They go a long way. They can strike deep into the heart of Russia. So here's President Trump doing what President Biden did before him.
Hmm.
What's the difference? Well, on this issue, there is no difference. So what we see is a defense intelligence establishment that has its way with leadership. Doesn't matter if they're left or right, Democrat or Republican. The program just keeps on moving ahead. And I'm not saying President Trump isn't trying to change things. He just hasn't gotten the job done yet. In the meantime, China has rejected President Trump's offer to participate in nuclear disarmament talks that President Trump intends to have with Vladimir Putin. The Chinese said, hey, we're the junior partner when it comes to this nuclear weapons thing. You guys got 10 times more than us. What are you asking us to come for? Could you please control yourselves? It's really not a bad argument.
Mm.
It's not a bad argument. I mean, I think the United States and Russia has about, allegedly, who knows, 5,000 nuclear weapons each.
Yeah. Why would they ever disclose that?
We wouldn't know, would we?
Yeah.
It-
I know that if I was defending myself, I wouldn't let my opposition know what guns I had in my house.
Well, and then the Chinese are only reputed to have about 500 nuclear weapons.
Yeah, right.
Just 500. Who knows? Who knows? We don't know. But it makes for good news. Sell some soap. President Trump is doing something that is very realpolitik. He's confronting an axis, Iran, Russia, and China. He's confronting a iron triangle, a political and military alliance, and he's confronting it in a way that is not, he's not advertising. Just every day, the United States government ups the ante on disincentivizing countries like India from supporting this alliance. India now is suffering with a 50% tariff, and that was in response to the Indians buying Russian oil. And now India is pretty hamstrung economically because of this. So there is a lot of pressure being placed on countries throughout the world that are trying to do what's called stand on two boats, which is also somewhat similar to George W. Bush. You're either with us or you're with the terrorists. President Trump has taken a very similar attitude. You're either with the United States or you're not. Hey, if you want to be with the other guys, it's okay. You just can't make money with us. That's okay. I like that. I mean, what he's saying is pick a side of the football, and he's exercising the power of the United States consumer market to incentivize preferred behavioral outcomes. It's actually quite disclosing. He's being quite honest about it. If you want to have access to our consumer market, you're going to have to do what's good for the United States of America. It's pretty honest, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's listen to number 5.
The president's tariff plan brought in more than $28 billion in July, a fresh monthly high. Tariffs are becoming the third largest source of income for government. And the last time you were with me, you told me that you would expect $300 billion in tariff revenue. But I think you are increasing that expectation right now, aren't you?
I am. So I think August, September is going to be a very good test. I've been saying that I think we can take in $300 billion, and as the Treasury Secretary, I like to be conservative, but there's a chance that I'm going to have to substantially upgrade that number. And Maria, the way to think about it for your viewers is every $300 billion is 1% of GDP. We were left with a mess. The deficit to GDP, 6.5, 6.7%, highest when we were not in a recession, not at war. So just the tariff revenue can bring that down into the 5s, which fits with this administration's plan of getting the deficit to GDP back into the 3s, the long-term average, before President Trump leaves office.
That's Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, increasing his forecast about tariff revenue. These tariffs were just ruled illegal by an appellate court. The tariffs are still being collected until the administration gets a chance to make a case asking the Supreme Court to take up this issue. The tariffs are going to remain in place to at least October 14th. Will the Supreme Court take up this issue? Very likely. If, in fact, the Supreme Court did not take up the issue, the tariffs would be over because they've been ruled illegal, that the president has exceeded his authority by using the IEPPA authority, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, to impose what's called reciprocal tariffs. The tariffs that are not ruled illegal are what are called the sectoral tariffs that are the outcome of what's called Section 232 investigations. Sectors like automobiles and automobile parts, like the tire business, the 25% that I'm paying when I import tires that we would like to sell to you on TireGet.com, hey, they're good. They're not being um, questioned. Those 232 tariffs are not illegal. They can go on, which means that when you go to TireGet.com, and you buy an imported tire, 25% tax has been paid bringing that into the country. And you're still going to get an outstanding deal because a very large percentage of these 25% taxes have been absorbed on the producer's side. The price was lowered to keep access to the U.S. market. Keep that up there, young man. TireGet, I'm going to ask you to go to TireGet. I'm going to ask you to ask your kids, your parents, your friends, your coworkers, because we want to support Free People Radio and the Professor Penn podcast. When you go to TireGet, every price is going to be right. It's great customer service, and we're going to mount and balance these tires 5 minutes from your house. It is the best way to buy tires in the United States of America. And when you do it, when you check out, use FPR, Free People Radio, as your promo code. Will give you an extra 3% off just because we want to know you picked it up right here on the podcast. So please do that. Call in. We might get a chance to meet. And so this just goes to show that small business like TireGet.com, we're caught up in this drama about these tariffs. And this court, this appeals court, has ruled the tariffs are illegal, that there is no emergency. The argument about was this an emergency, the trade deficit and the budget deficit and the national debt, are they emergencies? And this group of jurists ruled 7-4 that they are not. That they are not. Well, we're going to see if the Supreme Court picks up this case. I think they probably will pick it up, and we'll see what they want to do. Uh, I asked a very good friend of mine who's a lawyer, and he said a very unlawyer-like kind of answer. He said there's money involved.
Mm.
Doesn't sound like it was really on the merits of the case. It sounds like it was on the merits of the cash. That was his opinion, that because there was big money involved, that these tariffs would be ruled ultimately legal. And I said, well, what is this? Theater? He goes, yes, it is. Theater. Well, we don't know. He doesn't know. We're guessing. But I'll tell you what has come out, which I find rather vindicating for myself. When we were having the big, beautiful bill, they were saying, oh, lions and tigers and bears, oh my, that the big, beautiful bill was going to add $3.3 trillion to our national debt over 10 years. And I said, I don't think so. I think this tariff income is actually going to lead to the debt getting paid down. And guess what happened after all the dust settled and the smoke cleared? The Congressional Budget Office changed its estimates about what's going to happen. And it said just this last week that these tariffs will reduce the national deficit by $4 trillion over the next decade. So it turns out that with these tariffs, we're no longer digging the hole deeper. Isn't that interesting? When the fight was going on, when everybody was paying attention, the tariffs, they weren't going to have any impact. Now that the fight's over, the very same people said, we got to recalculate. Doesn't sound very nonpartisan, does it?
Mm.
Sounds rather steeped in an agenda. Anyhow, if we were to take this tariff regime out of the equation because the tariffs were ruled illegal, the ass will be falling off the donkey. And here's another one that vindicates me, and I was always very careful about this. I said, tariffs could cause a change in prices, and prices go up and prices go down, but it's not really inflation. It's a one-time reset. And guess what happened? Federal Reserve Chair Jay Powell, last Friday at the Jackson Hole meeting, said, rather grudgingly, he admitted what the Trump team has been saying all along. Tariffs don't fuel inflation. He came right out and said it. Yes, he did. He said, and I said, man, it's not inflation. Prices going up and down is not inflation. Inflation is just a byproduct of the money supply. As long as we're borrowing money and print more money there's going to be inflation. That's just the way it goes. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah.
And nobody ever talks about spending cuts. I got a guy that I follow on X. His name is Buck Sterling, and he's very critical of these tariffs because they're taxes after all. And nobody is proposing any spending cuts. If we took these tariffs away, we'd need about $2 trillion of spending cuts. Would anybody like to go first? What would you like to cut, Tanner? See? Silence. Everybody goes, quiet. Don't talk about, don't take away my dog bowl. Do anything you want to do. Don't step on my blue suede shoes. That's what people are going to say. So we're going to have to raise more revenue. And going back to the beginning of the podcast, and if you came in late, please repost the links. Please buy your tires at TireGet. Please come to the meeting September 10th at Devani's on Highway 7, 6 o'clock p.m. And if you're in another state, start your own meetings. Please. Like Skinny, start meetings, man. You know, I mean, I like you, but I like you for a reason. I'm sorry to be so blunt about it because we're a political action community. We're not a society of friends like the Quakers. We're a society of Republicans. We got work to do. Yes, we got work to do. And we up at the front end of this podcast, go back and look. If you came in late, Yuval Noah Harari, noted philosopher of the New World Order, he says it right out. The social credit score is a new kind of money. We can monetize everything through surveillance. You throw some trash on the ground, you're going to lose score. You visit your grandmother in an old folks' home, you're going to get a few points. We can monetize your reputation. How you think about this, how you think about that. Your thoughts are now monetized. Doesn't that sound great? You can get credit not for your capital investment, but for what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Wow. Doesn't that sound good?
I'm about to go broke hanging out with you.
Yes, you
Just-
are.
Silence.
There's no silence there. We know. Hey, please, because for some of us, this is not a academic exercise. For those of us that are podcasting and broadcasting and searching for truth, I'm just leaving a body of work out there. They know who I am. The reason that I'm not having more problems is you guys aren't going to join your party. If 200,000 people show up at caucuses around the country or join the party around the country and fill all the empty billets in the Republican Party, hey, Dan Schultz and I, we got trouble at River City because then we're effective. But until we're effective, hey, we're just guys, having a good time. But if you could please go do that, then I could have a different set of problems. But man, they'd have a different set of problems too, wouldn't they? And the problem would be that we'd be self-governing. Tariffs do not cause inflation. Tariffs cause a reset in pricing. And why was this a lie that Jerome Powell told when this started? Because he's looking for a way to keep the interest rates high, like TireGet.com. Man, we're paying so much interest. There's no money left for me or for Free People Radio unless you buy more tires. The interest rates here in the United States, the Fed fund rate is like 2.5 points higher than the rest of the world. I think we're banging along at about 4.5 points, 4 to 4.5 points. I think China's like 1 point, or Japan's 1 point, Europe's 2 points. What does that mean? It means that small business, everything we do, everything we earn is going to pay off the interest on our bank loans. There's no money left for us. It's used, these high interest rates are used to choke out the middle market. And what is the middle market? Economic freedom. Remember, we're always talking about now, what are the issues that bring us together? One of them is economic freedom, economic self-sufficiency, self-determination, medical freedom, choosing what I want to do medically, food freedom. I want healthy food, religious freedom. I don't want to be incentivized. Do you realize with that social credit score, if I looked up a prayer, I could lose score.
Yeah.
That's going to kind of disincentivize faith in God, isn't it?
Also, it's just gonna. We think that information war is already bad. When that gets rolled out, it's gonna be terrible because people are gonna be scared to look into anything because you don't know, is it a bad thing that I'm looking?
Oh,
What
no,
I'm
you
wondering
know,
right
you're
now.
just not going to look any. I'm going to tell you a story. This is a terrible self-reveal.
Yeah.
I grew up in a very liberal home, leftist. My mother was on the cutting edge of depopulation. I remember she had Paul Ehrlich's book, The Population Bomb, on her nightstand when I was a teenager. My mom used to go to all of the, uh, shall we say, environmental protests. We were recycling before it was popular.
Hmm.
Yes, we were. We were. And then I was in my early 20s after all that programming about don't even put trash on the ground, David. It's don't pollute the world. The pollution.
Hmm.
Man, I started throwing stuff out my car window in protest. It was just a protest of the protest.
Yeah.
I was protesting the protest. I thought to myself, surely this piece of paper I'm throwing out my window, this wrapper, surely the earth has a way of dealing with it. Of
Mm.
course it does, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm eating an apple, out the window it goes. Well, isn't that where everybody puts their apples, is out in the, on the ground? Because, hey, it's a meal for some bugs. I started littering as an act of protest of protest. My social credit score is shot. You know, that's where we're living. Anyhow, these interest rates are so high. If I complain about the interest rate I'm paying, my social credit score is going to go down. I'm going to have even less access to capital. I'm going to have to put my hands together like a seal and say, I love high interest rates.
Yeah.
I love it. Man, you want to live in this world where your very thinking is under the control of technocrats that can use digital money to enhance the likelihood that you're going to do what they want you to do. And what do they want you to do? They want you to die. We're living in a depopulation cult. That's where we're living. And I'm sorry, YouTube. I mean, it's all written down. Please don't censor me for just reading the books. I read The Population Bomb, Paul Ehrlich. I've read all of these agendas, Agenda 2030. I have read it. You can read it. They are not hiding because they are into, and I'm not talking about the politicians. I'm talking about the academics and the masters of this program. They're into full disclosure. We have to disclose. Why? Because we have to choose this. It doesn't work if they trick us. Because there's a spiritual element to this, spiritual truths. We have to choose the population for our own good.
Yeah.
For
That's
our
how
own
you get
good.
people to defend it then. And we saw that during like COVID times. Even though a lot of this come out and things have calmed down, there's still some people that they subscribe so hard to the fears of COVID that they still preach it today. When you let someone choose it, even if they find out that they were duped in some way, they will always have the, what is it, cognitive dissonance of like being able to admit that they were wrong. They will always stand by it.
Well, COVID's a real thing. I got a friend of mine got it this past week,
Yeah.
and he said there was a pain in his head that he'd never felt before. It doesn't sound very fun. He lived through it. It is a real thing.
I'm not saying it's fake. I'm just saying like
Well,
the
some people
scope.
say on the other side, some people say it's a fake thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a real disease. I had it,
Yeah.
but how I respond to it, or how I keep my well-being, that's medical freedom. Come on. Don't we all want to be medically free to choose our own way in life?
Mm.
I mean, I hope we do. I hope we have some sense that what I do with my medical choices would be different. Hey, if you were for abortion, that'd be medical freedom, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Because if we're not, I mean, we got to get the contradiction out of the thing. Because if we're going to tell people what to do, ladies wouldn't want to be told what to do. They want medical freedom. I never thought of that before.
But if somebody, yeah, but to go back to that point though, like of the people having to choose it, if those people were to be tricked, they would know that they were tricked. But since they subscribe to it so hard, they will defend it at any point, even if they come across those
Because they
hypocrisies.
chose it of their own free will.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We're supposed to choose our own destruction because of the flaws of humanity and the overpopulation that's going to destroy the planet. And we're going to have a post-human world with a silicon-based AI. And that's really the issue of the day. And that's why I say, Mary Franson, can we quit talking about transgenders and guns? I mean, if you guys don't know what the issues are, then you need to do a little homework. We need to talk about the real thing, not all of the symptoms, not all of the diversions in the cover stories. We need to talk about the real thing, the impact of technology upon our human lives. Got to stay out of the psyop, which keeps us off the real issue. When we get down to the real issue, we're going to have real unity. It won't matter if we're Christians or Jews or Muslims or young or old or white or black. When we get hip to what's going on here as human beings, we're going to find some commonalities. And that's the last thing the handlers want. So they just keep dividing us on these issues. This tragedy last week is just the next one. Let's divide over the transgender community, medical treatments, and guns. And let's hate each other over it. Great. That doesn't really bring about the preferred behavioral outcome I'm looking for, which is unity for the well-being of the people. President Trump has now moved on to taking on the Fed. There's a Fed governor, Lisa Cook. She's allegedly has 3 primary residences. So President Trump is trying to remove her because of her 3 primary residences, but also because she's a Biden appointee and she is for high interest rates. President Trump is trying to get the Fed to lower the interest rates. And of course, when Jay Powell came out and said that tariffs really don't cause inflation, they've opened the door now to interest rate reductions, which is sorely, sorely demanded by people like me in the middle market that own businesses. We need those interest rates to come down. And so do you, so you can afford a house. Tanner, you might be able to afford a house.
Yeah, hopefully.
You might.
Maybe.
Could come down 200 basis points. Oh, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
100 basis points is 1%. Let's see what happens. And the EU, just to let you know, the European Union has firmly sided with the United States of America on trade. What does that mean? Anti-China. And here in the United States, we've got battles over redistricting congressional districts. Big deal. That's been going on forever. He who hath the gold maketh the rules. So what do? We mobilize the National Guard to prepare for civil unrest because there are all these issues and the people are being, should we say, inflamed and perturbed because everybody believes it's the end of the line. Well, the end of the line is not going to come from the left on the right or the right on the left. It's going to come from technology upon all of us. Let's listen to number 6.
A stark warning about artificial intelligence from Geoffrey Hinton, the Nobel Prize-winning scientist whose pioneering research helped lay the groundwork for AI. That's why he's often called the godfather of AI. Hinton says there's a 10 to 20% chance AI will wipe out humans, but made headlines today suggesting at a conference that the tech industry should somehow install what he termed maternal instincts into superintelligent AI, so they'll protect humans like mothers protect their babies.
They've been saying, we have to stay in control of these AIs. We've somehow got to be stronger than them. We've got to be dominant and they've got to be submissive. That's not going to work. We have to make it so that when they're more powerful than us and smarter than us, they still care about us.
Geoffrey Hinton joins me now. Professor Hinton, your remarks have obviously gotten a lot of attention. You talked about engineers building maternal instincts into AI models. What would be the purpose of that? What would that do? And is it even possible?
Most of the AI experts believe that sometime in the next 5 to 20 years, we'll make AIs that are smarter than people. And they'll probably end up much smarter than people. And there's very few examples we know of smarter things being controlled by less smart things. In fact, pretty much the only example we know is a mother being controlled by her baby. To make that happen, evolution built maternal instincts into the mother. And if we don't do something like that with these alien beings that we're creating, we're going to be history.
How hard is it from just a technological perspective to actually build motherly instinct? I mean, is there an example of that being done at all, or has that happened at all?
The only real example we have is evolution. Evolution obviously made a pretty good job of it with mothers. People haven't been focusing on that. They've been focusing on making these things more intelligent. But intelligence is just one part of a being. We need to make them have empathy towards us. And we don't know how to do that yet. But evolution managed it, and we should be able to do it too.
You know, we've heard from so many people, leaders in the tech field, who say, well, look, if the U.S. doesn't win this war, this battle for dominance in the AI world, a rogue nation, a country that's an enemy of the United States, China, Russia, they're going to have AI. If China is not developing AI that has maternal instincts, and the U.S. is the only one who has maternal instincts, does that not make them... is that not making them weaker in this war for dominance?
Well, there are many risks of AI, like cyber attacks and loss of jobs and making nasty viruses. But one of the risks is this existential threat that AI will take over. And for that threat, all the countries will collaborate because they're all in the same boat. No country wants AI to take over. Just as the USSR and the Americans collaborated at the height of the Cold War, countries will collaborate on how to prevent AI from taking over from people.
Do you believe human nature won't encourage some leader somewhere or some government somewhere to believe that they can control it, whether or not that's actually possible?
Well, we have a nice example in the States of a government that's determined to control it. I don't think that's going to work. It may work against other countries, but when AI becomes smarter than people, that's just not going to work. This whole idea that people need to be dominant and the AI needs to be submissive, that's the kind of tech bro idea that I don't think will work when they're much smarter than us.
Do you still believe that 10 to 20% chance of AIs wiping out humans is possible?
Oh yes, if we can't figure out a solution to how we can still be around when they're much smarter than us and much more powerful than us, we'll be toast.
What do you think? It's stunning to me that this technology, it's already changing things, but the tidal wave of change that we are going to be seeing shortly and are already seeing, that it's being run by people who are not elected. These are people, who are making billions of dollars doing this. Nobody ever really elected them. There's been no consensus agreement that, yes, this is good for humanity. Do you think the average person, and I include myself in that grouping, understands what is about to happen here?
No, I think they don't. And I think it's important for the public to understand it. We need a counter pressure to the tech bros who are saying there should be no regulations on AI. And also we need the countries to understand they need to collaborate on how to avoid the existential threat.
What do you think it does to initiative for, I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. I'm very worried about, what world they're going to have in 10 years. If there's machines that do everything better than humans do, what's the initiative for people to strive to become good at something?
One thing we know about mothers is mothers genuinely care about their babies, and they do whatever they can to make life interesting for the babies and to make the babies grow and realize their full potential. So if we have super intelligent AI looking after us, we may be able to get the same thing.
Jeffrey Hinton, it's a real pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
I like that there, Mr. Tanner. There's the father of AI.
Yeah, that's a little eerie. I can't believe that the number is 10 to 20%, and he says it with such confidence. He's like, "Oh yeah, that humans might just be toast," and we're still pursuing it.
He's low on the threat scale. A lot of people say it's 50% or more. The interesting thing I took out of this piece, and it's going to be segue, a transition, to talking about Kristin Robbins and her candidacy for governor here in Minnesota, is he talks about the importance of uh, programming AI to have empathy, the empathy of a mother, maternal instincts. And I have to look at you and I have to say, really? Really? Uh, whose side of the football is this guy really on? Because if you think about uh, the way our world is, that'd be 50% of that would be from mothers.
Mm.
And it's pretty screwed up. In fact, I know a lot of mothers who have abused a lot of children. Um, I don't know that that's the answer. One might say mothers are rather imperfect in
Yeah.
their ability to raise their children. And as the children get older, the mothers certainly make choices of self-interest. And he only was talking about evolution and how evolution did a great job of having a mother love their children.
Yeah, and they think they can recreate it now.
Why not program the AI to believe in Christ?
Mm.
Why didn't they think of that one? Why didn't they think of that one? Well, that would be because they don't believe in God. So they're coming to an evolutionary outcome, which I have to say stands on rather impeachable grounds from my perspective. So I'm asking myself, who is this guy proposing this solution? Again, how do we know?
Yeah.
How do we know where he's coming from? Sounds good, doesn't it? Mother's love. Mother's love. Mother's love. All the mothers that love their children so much that they send them off to go die in foreign wars of discretion.
Yeah.
Because if mothers really loved their children so much, there wouldn't be any wars, would there? Since they have the vote. It would be impossible for the evildoer men to send sons off to die in wars and daughters to go off and die in wars if all the women were so hegemonically devoted to the well-being of their offspring. I think I would be more prone to say, I need to love my neighbor as I wish to be loved. Thou shalt not kill. That kind of programming. Why don't they just go right to that?
Yeah.
Because wouldn't that work a lot better?
Yeah. I think I know the answer, and it's simply because then that would render military use worthless. Because
Oh,
if you sent it overseas and it treat your neighbor as you to be treated, they wouldn't kill any other.
wow. I guess we got a problem with our analysis here.
Yeah.
And that's a great transition into Kristin Robbins, who is a Minnesota State Legislature participant. She was elected. She lives up in Maple Grove. And let's say you're watching me from Ohio or from Nevada. You got a Kristin Robbins right in your state. And what is Kristin Robbins? Kristin Robbins is duplicitous. Now, Kristin, I know you're going to see this, and I just want to tell you, I don't know you that well. You might just be like sliced bread. You might be fantastic. I'm not taking a chance on you because I look up your history. And while just like Adam Schwartzy, it's possible that you've had a change of heart and a conversion of soul. It's possible. I'm not taking a chance on it. I'm not taking a chance on anyone that emerges with the kind of backgrounds that an Adam Schwartzy or a Kristin Robbins brings into the political theater, because their background tells me who they are. Let's take a look at this picture of Kristin Robbins. Pop that picture up there, and we can use that for the thumbnail. Can you center in on that? Can you make that a little bigger?
Mhm.
Now I'm going to just make a statement, a personal statement, which when I do something like this, I'm analyzing myself as much as I'm analyzing the picture. And I'm looking at the energy in this headshot. I'm just looking at the eyes, the smile, the energy of the face. And you know what I see? I see something I don't like very much. It scares me. I don't understand it. It's supposed to be a happy face with a big smile, but the energy in the face is not warm. It's not friendly. It doesn't make me feel safe. In fact, it makes me feel on edge. Now, that's just me. I'm analyzing myself, but that's how I feel. Tanner, do you see that in that picture, or is it just me?
I can see it in the eyes. The eyes don't match the smile.
They don't, do they?
Yeah.
And if you could choose any headshot, that would have had to be the best they could come up with. I wonder what the discards looked like.
Yeah.
Okay. I've met this woman. I've been in the room with her several times. She doesn't give me the warm fuzzies, yet she has decided to run for governor. The word around the campfire was she was going to run for senator. But I think since her candidacy emerges right from the top, the first time I was in the, not the first time, maybe the third time I was in the room with this woman, she was there quite supportive of Tom Emmer, who was also in the room. In fact, everybody in that room but me had this look on their face like they loved Tom Emmer. I looked at all the faces. I said, ooh, this is a little scary. Feels a little cult-like to me. I don't know. I'm analyzing myself again. I'm not making any allegations. I'm just saying this is how it made me feel. And she was going to run for Senate, a United States Senator. That was the rumor. And then she pops up running for governor. And I have to ask myself, why? Because she comes right out of central casting, right? Why would she run for governor? Well, that would be because the people that are running for governor, Scott Jensen, no, failed before. He's not going anywhere this time. Kendall Qualls failed before. He's not going anywhere this time. Brad Kohler, I don't know what Brad's doing there. He doesn't know what's going on. And then there's Phil Parrish, who's appeared on this show. And of course, Dr. Jensen, if you want to come on and prove me wrong, you're welcome. Kendall's really not welcome because he lied to me. But I think the constabulary looked at this and said, wow, Phil Parrish has kind of got a line to victory here. We better roll out a heavy weapon. Kristin Robbins, let's play number 7.
Brent and I loved raising our 3 girls in the western suburbs, cheering on soccer, softball, and choir, and teaching Sunday school. You know how it is, juggling school, dinner, practice, and homework, just trying to work hard, pay the bills, do right by our kids. I know that life as a working family is never easy, but failed politicians like Tim Walz are making it even harder. Tim Walz spent our entire $18 billion surplus in just 2 years, and he raised taxes by $10 billion, yet still managed to leave us with a huge deficit, crushing working families, seniors, and small businesses. Tim Walz's mismanagement of our state has created an epidemic of fraud, with criminals stealing hundreds of millions from Minnesota taxpayers and hurting our most vulnerable citizens. Tim Walz is a disaster and an embarrassment. He's obsessed with the radical culture war against our daughters, letting biological boys into girls' bathrooms, locker rooms, and sports teams. Walz even wants Minnesota to be a sanctuary state for illegals. The American people looked at Tim Walz and said no thanks. Minnesota should do the same. I'm running for governor to put your family first, for the minivan moms, the hockey dads, and the everyday Minnesotans who make this state work. In the legislature, I've led the charge to repeal the Walz tax hikes and cut taxes on families, seniors, and Social Security. I'm leading the fight to stop the fraud and hold government accountable. I'm working to strengthen our schools and support our police. As governor, I'll stop the insanity, bring back common sense, and make Minnesota work for you. Lower taxes, safer streets, better schools, and no more creepy experiments on our kids. I'm Kristin Robbins, and I'm running for governor because we need a common sense leader who will fight for you.
Kristin Robbins for Minnesota.
How do you feel about that, Tanner?
Hollywood magic.
Hollywood magic. Lower taxes, better schools, safer streets. What could be more predictable than that? Kristin Robbins is trying to portray herself as interested in your family, Tanner. She's just like you, got a husband and 3 daughters, just like you got a daughter and a family.
Yeah.
Don't you feel safe with that? And I'm going to tell you right now, Kristin Robbins has nothing in common with Tanner's family and nothing in common with my family. Now, of course, what I'm going to say is my best efforts to pick up information. I'm a researcher. I could be wrong, but I think her husband is a lawyer who works for one of the major corporations in this state. These people have nothing economically in common with the struggles of my family or the struggles of your family. A blatant attempt to align herself with the soccer moms and the hockey dads, an everyday woman, someone that we know we might see at the school, dropping kids off. And it's time that we need to understand that you can have an R after your name. You can be right on guns, right on taxes, right on everything, and be completely duplicitous about who you are. Kristin Robbins is not telling me who she is. I had to look it up. Kristin Robbins was the founder and executive director, at least this is what it says online. And Kristin, you're welcome to come on here if I'm wrong. The executive director of an organization called the Economic Club of Minnesota. Now, doesn't that sound nice? The Economic Club of Minnesota sounds like a bunch of business people getting together to support each other. Like I could be involved in it, the Economic Club.
Yeah.
For small business, middle market companies. We can all come together, get support. And that is not what the Economic Club is all about. You know, Republicans are allegedly about economic freedom. That is not what the Economic Club is all about. The Economic Club is about the elimination of economic freedom, in my opinion. Could you please go to that landing page number 8 and let's play the video that's just going to show right up there.
You have a very special thing here, as I've told some of you. There's a buzz, there's an excitement about your state that is just palpable, and I love it. And I love, you know, the way you're able to come together like this and celebrate things like the importance of free trade, which to my mind is our nation's most powerful weapon.
I'm here in a room full of people who have done a lot of stuff, a lot of very. I was just listening to some of the experience of the people at the table, and I am impressed and in awe.
Today, trade represents nearly 30% of America's economy. 1 out of every 5 Americans' job touches trade. So trade's really important. But as somebody who spent most of their career, 21 years living in Asia and 30 plus years working on Asia, I can tell you that America, we're a rules-based country. We follow the rules. Not everyone does. And I think that's what's fueling a lot of this disruption, is that not everybody's playing by those rules.
It's always great for me to be back in Minnesota. This is I think the second time I've been at the podium here at the Economic Club. And those of you who might have remembered the Zoom experience we had December 17th, 2020, I had Amy Klobuchar and Tom Emmer on my show, the podcast, The Takeout, in which we talked about all sorts of issues then. So this is my third go-round with the Economic Club, so I'm very happy to be here.
Food and food insecurity is often not considered a political issue. And it's very difficult to get the G7 to include food security and agriculture on the agenda of the heads of state. It is always on the agenda of the agriculture ministers, the development ministers, but rarely ever, unless there is a crisis, on the political agenda.
The Economic Club of Minnesota's mission is to provide a world-class, nonpartisan forum for national and international leaders in business and public policy to discuss ideas that affect how Minnesota can better compete in the global economy. The Economic Club of Minnesota, engaging the world, strengthening Minnesota.
Kristin Robbins allegedly started this organization with Tim Penn right after she finished university. Executive Director of the Economic Club of Minnesota sounds like a very impressive title, and it got Kristin Robbins in touch with some very powerful people. Could you please put up the board of directors of this organization, and let's scroll through and let the viewers and listeners come into contact with who Kristin Robbins is hobnobbing with in between her trips to the soccer field and the hockey rink with her 3 beautiful daughters. There's Tim Penn, former congressperson, co-founder and vice chair. Look at that, the current director, Neil Kashkari, chairman of the Minneapolis Federal Reserve. Let's keep scrolling down. Dr. Christine Cummings, vice president, former of the New York Federal Reserve. And going on down, there's the treasurer. We'll pass right on by that. Kate Kelly, what was she? She was in charge of a bank, PNC. She was the regional president. Oh, look at the next one. Martha Muffy McMillan, one of the owners of Cargill, the largest privately held company in the world based right here in Minnetonka, Minnesota, a commodities and grain trading company, not just grain. And it goes on and on. There's Eric Paulson, a Minnesota congressperson who went to Washington, and right here from CD3, who trashed President Trump in 2016, which led to the demise of Republicans in CD3. It goes on and on. Look at this organization. Look at who these people are. Look at who these people are. You can go look it up yourself. Economic Club of Minnesota. This is the group of people that hired Kristin Robbins to run their organization, not for a day or two, for quite some time. So when Kristin Robbins says she's a soccer mom, I'm not saying she never went to a soccer game, but she's got nothing in common with you if you're a soccer mom, because you weren't hobnobbing with the chairman of the Minneapolis Federal Reserve, who, by the way, is a communist. You weren't supporting an organization which touts Amy Klobuchar and Tom Emmer getting on the same podcast as palsies, because after all, this is the center. And what is this? What were they talking about? What did John Huntsman say in that video that's on the landing page of the Economic Club of Minnesota? What did he say? Free trade is America's most powerful weapon. Free trade. You know, free trade has got nothing to do with America first. Kristin Robbins, I heard with my own ears, she supported Nikki Haley. She said it out loud with boldness and brashness and bravery. Has nothing to do with America first. She said, I supported Nikki Haley until I didn't. Then I supported President Trump. No, you don't support President Trump, because you worked at a free trade booster organization for a very long time. And if you really believed in President Trump's economic agenda and his political agenda, you wouldn't work with people like this, because the split in our party and in this country is between the folks that believe in free trade, which is the gateway drug to one world government, and to the social credit score. You see, that's one side of the football. Free trade, one world government, the surveillance state, and the social credit score to save humanity. Yes, that's one side. That's the side of the football Kristin Robbins played on her entire adult life. Now she's, good on guns and good on taxes, and she's jumping up and down about fraud after the bank got robbed. That's not very helpful. It'd be nice if she jumped up and down about it bravely before the money got stolen, but we're going to leave that to the side. I'm just saying that's who she hobnobbed with. That's the organization she played with. And we have to ask ourselves, as Minnesota Republicans, are we going to get fooled like this? I mean, really, are we going to continue to get fooled by a beautiful woman who speaks well, who puts up images of herself as a soccer mom and a hockey dad, whose husband actually is a very prominent lawyer, if the words online are correct, working for a very prominent corporation, which is at the center of all kinds of issues, high income, certainly, and then try to show herself as having something in common with me? There's nothing in common between me and Kristin Robbins other than she calls herself a Republican. There's nothing Republican about what these people are doing. What these people are doing is globalist. You don't have to be a Republican or a Democrat to be a globalist, although most of the globalists are Democrats. Workers of the world unite, after all. This is the richest, most powerful people in Minnesota hiring this woman as a secretary as they go about promoting their one world government agenda. That's who she is and her career. No, she may have had an epiphany, just like Adam Schwartzy. They may have had an epiphany. They could even tell me they had an epiphany. And on a personal basis, I would believe them. But not on a political basis, because these people lie. They're duplicitous. They're not disclosing. They're not disclosing at all, because Kristin Robbins says she supports President Trump, and that's duplicitous. She does not support President Trump. Everything she's been involved in her adult life, her professional life with this Economic Club of Minnesota stands in stark contrast to the American First political and economic agenda of the Trump administration. So if we're Americans, if we're Minnesotans, and we have to make a decision about our future leadership, this woman shouldn't even be in the House or in the legislature here in Minnesota. She's completely duplicitous. She's ambitious, and she has a goal for herself. And she's been on the payroll of the wealthiest people in this society for a very long time. I don't want these kind of people. She may be a fine person. I don't know her. I'm not commenting on her. I don't know her. I'm looking at the circumstances, the outline of who she is, just like I did with Adam Schwartzy. I'm not going to take chances on these people, and I'm going to ask you to consider, are we going to take chances on people when they lie to us continuously? When they lie to us continuously. Like if we stand 6 feet apart from each other, it makes a difference. When we're lied to continuously, are we going to trust people that are aligned with other folks that are known to lie? She might not be a liar. She may have had an epiphany. And I say this, see my hand go up? I voted for George W. Bush. I did have an epiphany, and I have a long period of time with a big body of work where I'm very consistent in what I believe. And I believe in the well-being of the American people and of Minnesota citizens. I changed. I'm not running for office. If I jump up and run for office, some of you should question who I am. What are my bona fides? Have I really given up my job in show business? I'm a reform globalist. Is she a reform globalist? Is she going to stand up and attack the Economic Club of Minnesota from whence she came and criticize their policies? Because these are not the policies of the modern Republican Party. They are the policies of the Democrat Party and the globalists. And that's what we're sorting out here in Minnesota. And that goes for Kendall Qualls. And that goes for Adam Schwartzy. And if you don't like this, if this triggers you, if it makes you not like me, I'm okay with that. I'm just going to ask you, before you start hating, start participating, go to the landing page of the Economic Club of Minnesota and do your own research if you like Kristin Robbins. Did you know that? Because I'm disclosing it even though she did not. She was duplicitous. She wants me to think she's a Republican. She wants me to think she's a soccer mom. She wants me to think she cares about my kids the way I care about my kids. And she doesn't. Because she's hanging around with a bunch of people that believe in shipping our jobs overseas and having a technocracy of technology that handles everything. Because that's who these people are. That's what they believe. And all you got to do is keep reading and reading and reading, because they're nice enough to write everything down, even if they're paid or designated representatives like Kristin Robbins continue to be duplicitous. The people that run the deal, like at the Economic Club of Minnesota, lay it right out there. They lay it right out there, right out in the open. So I'm going to ask you, Tanner, to please cue up that video on the landing page of the Economic Club of Minnesota. We're going to play it one more time as we go out, because I want you to see what the Minnesota Republican Party, MinGOP, is erecting as candidates. We have to end these people's careers. We have to make a resounding statement that we, the people, are onto this. We've woken up, and we are going to elect real people, authentic people, as I talked about with John Gapp in the last episode, Christians and Republicans. Please check it. Because when we start to elect authentic people, honest people, we're going to expand our constituency, and we're going to find out that Minnesota is actually a Republican state. Thank you very much for joining. Tanner, thanks for coming in this morning.
Of course.
Please play this one more time so people can see the difference between authenticity and duplicity. Thanks very much for joining.
Have a good night, everybody.
You have a very special thing here, as I've told some of you. There's a buzz, there's an excitement about your state that's just palpable. And I love it. And I love, the way you're able to come together like this and celebrate things like the importance of free trade which to my mind is our nation's most powerful weapon.
I'm here in a room full of people who have done a lot of stuff, a lot of very. I was just listening to some of the experience of the people at the table, and I am impressed and in awe.
Today, trade represents nearly 30% of America's economy. 1 out of every 5 Americans' job touches trade. So trade's really important. But as somebody who spent most of their career, 21 years living in Asia and 30 plus years working on Asia, I can tell you that America, we're a rules-based country. We follow the rules. Not everyone does. And I think that's what's fueling a lot of this disruption, is that not everybody's playing by those rules.
It's always great for me to be back in Minnesota. This is I think the second time I've been at the podium here at the Economic Club. And those of you who might have remembered the Zoom experience we had December 17th, 2020, I had Amy Klobuchar and Tom Emmer on my show, the podcast, The Takeout, in which we talked about all sorts of issues then. So this is my third go-round with the Economic Club, so I'm very happy to be here.
Food and food insecurity is often not considered a political issue. And it's very difficult to get the G7 to include food security and agriculture on the agenda of the heads of state. It is always on the agenda of the agriculture ministers, the development ministers, but rarely ever, unless there is a crisis, on the political agenda.
The Economic Club of Minnesota's mission is to provide a world-class, nonpartisan forum for national and international leaders in business and public policy to discuss ideas that affect how Minnesota can better compete in the global economy. The Economic Club of Minnesota, engaging the world, strengthening Minnesota.